Hi, everybody. Welcome back on this Tuesday as we roll into our second hour. Again, keeping our eyes peeled a little toward California with this shooting that occurred today out there. Details still coming in bit by bit on top of everything, the Roy Moore story, the Attorney General in front of the Congressional Committee again, and all of that. But in the midst of all this, we had talked yesterday about some things that Fort Wayne is doing as a community to try to keep young people here and young workers here. And I've thought of our good friend Bobby Albert, who we've had on the program several times, a speaker, a consultant. He's with BobbyAlbert.com, which is a great, especially if you run or you manage a large business or a small business, it's a great website to go to for some great insights and resources to use. But we're lucky enough, we've got him right here on the Newsmaker line with us. Bobby, good afternoon to you, sir.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back on your show.
Yep, well, glad to have you. When we used to talk about hopping, job hopping, which is going to be the bulk of what we talk about today, Bobby, back in the days when you and I were younger, job hopping used to mean, well, he must not be very stable. He just can't hold on to a job. He gets bored. They let him go. He must not be valuable to the company. But now that we're into the 20-somethings, the young 30s, the millennials and younger, job hopping doesn't seem to be that big of a deal to them, does it?
Well, you're exactly right. We live in a time where we live in a brave new workplace. And what I'm talking about is, we have the boomers on one end, and we have the millennials on the other end, and very interesting is this Generation Z that follows the millennials. They're just now inching into to the workplace. But one thing about the millennials is they have the same needs as everybody else in the organization, and what they're looking for is the same thing as the boomers are always looking for, and that is, do you care for me as a person? Do I belong here? Do I fit in? Can I contribute toward the goals of the company? Does this company stand for something? And do you create a learning environment that I can do the best job I can? Now, what we're seeing is that with the millennials is that they're more bolder about job hopping when the employer does not meet those needs. There's just a kind of a practical thing here is, they most of them, they don't have a family yet to support, nor do they have some of the financial burdens and obligations that boomers have, for example, and they need more job security. So when employers do not meet their needs, they're just more bolder to let their feet do the walking to find an employer that will meet their needs.
Yeah, outside the job, there's less to leave them nailed where they are. As you've said, if there's no wife, or if there is a wife, maybe no kids yet, they're still probably renting or leasing their home, so they're not invested in a $200,000 or $300,000 house. And so there's fewer reasons outside of the job for them to maybe stay there. In the article I read, the actual statement, millennials should not apologize for their tendency to job hop. And the reason is they are determined not to get stuck in a dead-end job. And a lot of people, for a lot of their life, have been, but they're determined not to. So are they really taking the right perspective? And are bosses looking at the perspective the right way on ways to keep them there?
Well, I like the last thing you said there, because it's the bosses. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And this is kind of a signal to the bosses, the leaders of the organization or a department or a division, is that it is very important for us as leaders to meet the needs of our employees. I can assure you CEOs are not very focused on the needs of their people. They say they are, but really what they're really wanting is give me results, give me results, give me results. I want more money for the bottom line. And that's not. It's interesting that you got this huge gap between what the leaders want and what the people want.
Well, isn't that really short-term thinking, though, on the part of the leaders? I mean, I get it. If I go to, and let's just say here in state in Indiana, we have a pool of people. We, of course, have our colleges here in town, but it's very easy to go to Purdue, Notre Dame, Ball State, IU, the University of Indianapolis. We can find some great people from a great pool of people, go through the expense of finding them, the expense of getting them here, and the expense of getting up to speed. It just makes sense to me, Bobby, if I would do just a little more expenditure to make sure that we meet expectations, they understand, so they can appreciate the growth of the company. Maybe they won't, as the survey said. Maybe 45% of them won't leave my company in under 2 years. Because if I'm having to turn over 45% of my workforce every 2 years, that's got to be an enormous expense.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, I'm seeing numbers they're getting bigger and bigger all the time when you have to hire a new employee and train them, and then in 2 years they end up leaving, and they are very highly skillful, highly capable, very competent people, and we lose them, and it is very expensive. And you're right, for employers is to change the mindset, is that when they meet, it's kind of a counterintuitive from a CEO or the leader's perspective, is that if they give what the people want, they will give me what I want, but I got to give to them first. And it's kind of like this concept from a leadership aspect is I need to trust my people first, and then they'll trust me.
Would it be a smart owner, a smart top shelf manager to say, hey, let's make sure we take 5 or 6% of the company next year and reinvest it back into the people that we've already got here to make sure they understand the goal and the vision of the company, and to also help them to appreciate the fact that they're genuinely part of it? That's got to be a whole lot less expensive than actually going out and having to replace them.
Well, that is well said. And you know what will help is, and this sounds almost like, this is a bunch of the soft stuff, but really what will help in working to improve and cut down the turnover of workplace, there are 4 basic truths, is that people need to know who we are. That's the core values. They need to know why we exist. That's the purpose. They need to know where are we going, or where do we want to be. That's the vision. And the other is what I call a participative leadership style. In other words, this comes back to one of those needs I mentioned earlier. Can I contribute? Can I participate in the decision-making process of this company? I know that the boss needs to still make the final decision, but can I share some of my thoughts and ideas?
Well, I have participated the last several years as the MC for a CEO forum at Grace College, where they usually bring in about 5 or 6 business leaders of some pretty strong corporations, large and small, from about a 3-state area. And many of them keep giving the feedback that you're giving us right now here, Bobby. And again, we're talking to Bobby Albert of BobbyAlbert.com. But the whole idea, Bobby, that you make sure the people realize, I might own this, but this company belongs to all of us, and we have to all be in it together. It's got to make the road much easier for the owner, and it's got to make the profitability much smoother for the company.
Well, whenever the leader creates a team environment, the culture of a team environment, boy, can you win lots of championships. But if you want to just people be individuals on the team, in other words, I say this, do you want individuals on a team, or do you want a team of individuals? And you see it often in sports, is that when you have even though you got some people that are highly athletic, mm-hmm. and they're very good, but they're more like individuals on a team. In other words, they're more interested in what they can do and all those they're not working as a team. They win games, but they won't win the championship.
Well, again, you're talking to Indiana, and if we go down to Bloomington, Bobby, you may have just spelled out our problem for the last decade. So I didn't realize we had a sports program today, but Bobby, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
You can find out more from Bobby at bobbyalbert.com. Check out his book, Principled Profits. Outward success is an inside job. As always, Bobby, love you being on. You share some great insights. We look forward to having you again. Thanks so much for today.
Thank you.